I sat quietly in the old office, the flickering neon light on the ceiling struggling to hold on to the last glow of a long day. Before me was the company dissolution document, black letters smudged on white paper signed by my own hand. Crawford Cyber Defense, the brainchild into which I had poured my heart and soul, was now nothing but ashes. Bankruptcy. The word tasted so bitter, like a knife slicing into my heart. My hand trembled as I set down the pen, the ink not yet dry while my soul had already turned ice cold. How could I have imagined that just 3 months earlier, everything was still perfect to the point where I wondered if life was playing a joke on me? Let me start from the beginning, from the days when I was still Skylar Crawford, 36 years old, CEO of a leading cybersecurity company. 3 months ago, I was praised as an icon of the new generation of leaders. Calm, humble, disciplined, and always faithful to professional ethics. These were the compliments the press bestowed upon me. Back then, I felt invincible. My life was like a perfect painting, a solid career, a spotless reputation, not a single blemish. I had a beautiful wife, Iris, and an obedient son, Alan. Everything seemed unbreakable, as if the heavens had arranged for me to live in a dream from which I would never wake. Every morning I woke up in the sprawling villa on the city outskirts where sunlight filtered through large glass windows, illuminating the lush green garden. My company, Crawford Cyber Defense, was at its peak. We specialized in developing security software, helping major corporations fend off hackers and cyber threats. Revenue soared, stock prices rose, and I was invited to speak everywhere. I lived with discipline, waking at 5 a.m., jogging, reading, then diving into work. And I believed in professional ethics, never cutting corners, never stealing anyone's ideas. That was my life principle, and I thought it was what brought me success. But life, it turns out, is not always so fair. Disaster struck, swift as an unexpected storm. It was a Wednesday afternoon during a meeting with the executive board. My phone rang and my secretary's voice trembled. "Sir, there's a letter from the court." I opened the envelope and the world around me seemed to stop. The company was accused of financial fraud and stealing software source code from a competitor. The allegations hit like thunder. Someone had slandered us, presenting fabricated evidence that we had copied technology from another firm. I knew it was a lie. We had never done such a thing. But the evidence they produced was too detailed, too convincing. My heart pounded, cold sweat breaking out. "This is a conspiracy," I whispered to myself, but who? Why? The following days were hell. The press swooped in like vultures, splashing sensational headlines. CEO Skylar Crawford, from hero to fraud. Public opinion erupted, clients began canceling contracts. I ran around frantically, hiring the best lawyers, trying to prove our innocence. But our rivals were stronger, with connections, and their evidence was crafted too cleverly. I suffered endless sleepless nights lying beside Iris while my mind spun. "You'll get through this," she comforted, but her voice sounded distant, as if she were preparing for the worst. The litigation dragged on for weeks, each day a battle. I sat in the courtroom listening to the opposing lawyer lay out accusations, my heart constricting. Witnesses were brought forward, fake emails, distorted financial transactions. I tried to defend myself, recounting the journey of building the company from nothing, the ethics I had always upheld. But courts do not always follow the heart. In the end, the verdict came. We lost. The company was forced into bankruptcy, my personal assets frozen. I stood there in the packed courtroom, feeling the sky collapse. How could this be? What had I done wrong? Tears rolled down my cheeks, but I held them back, not wanting the public to see me weak. The day the villa was sealed was the darkest. I returned home, the car stopping at the large iron gate, and saw enforcement officers pasting seals on the doors. My heart ached sharply. This was the home Iris and I had built together, where Alan played joyfully. I stepped into the living room, the air heavy with dread. And then Iris appeared in the middle of the vast space, a small suitcase beside her. She looked at me, eyes full of disappointment, as if I were a stranger. "Iris, what's going on?" I asked, voice trembling, though deep down I already knew. She placed the divorce papers on the polished wooden table, the sound of paper hitting the surface like a second verdict. "I can't go on, Skylar," she said, voice cold but with a slight quiver. "I can't live in poverty like this. The public pressure is killing me. I can't stay with you when you have nothing left." Her words cut into my heart like a knife. I stood frozen, looking at her, the woman I had once loved passionately. Iris had always been pragmatic, fame-hungry, I knew that, but I never expected her to waver so easily. We had overcome so many hardships together, from the early startup days to the company's growth. "Think again, please," I pleaded painfully, voice choking. "Remember the hard times we faced before. For Alan, our son." I stepped forward, trying to hold her hand, but she shook her head, eyes cold as ice. Without a word in response, she pulled the suitcase and turned away. The door slammed shut, leaving the house cold and me, a failed man, standing alone in the empty living room. Her footsteps faded, and then only Alan's sobs came from upstairs. The boy ran down, eyes red. "Daddy, why did Mommy leave? Is she mad at you?" I hugged him tightly, not knowing what to say. How could I tell him his mother left because I had lost everything? My heart shattered, but I had to be strong. For Alan. That was the moment I realized the distance from the peak to the abyss is just one step. The days following the bankruptcy dragged on like a prolonged nightmare with no end in sight. Alan and I had to move out of the villa, now nothing more than a cold concrete shell plastered with ceiling notices. I rented a tiny motel room on the city outskirts where moldy walls and the constant roar of trucks echoed through the night. The room barely fit an old double bed and a rotting wooden table, but it was all I could afford with the meager savings left. Every morning I woke to see Alan sleeping soundly, his innocent face twisting my heart. I scrimped every penny for him, buying milk, bread, and a few cheap toys so he wouldn't feel alone. "Daddy, our house is so small, but I like it because it's close to you," Alan said with a pure smile, his words cutting into me like a knife. I hugged him, whispering, "It'll be okay, son. Daddy will do everything to get us a new home." But deep down, I knew it was an empty promise, as reality was cornering me. I started sending job applications everywhere, hoping my CEO experience would open some door. I spent hours at the old computer, crafting resumes, writing cover letters, sending them to hundreds of companies. "I am Skylar Crawford, who once led Crawford Cyber Defense to its peak," I wrote, trying to highlight past achievements. But the responses? Nothing, or worse, polite rejections. "We appreciate your experience, but the position has been filled." I knew the real reason. Who would hire someone tied to a fraud lawsuit, especially with a young child in tow? The press still covered the case, and my name now meant failure. Each rejection email felt like a punch in the face. My heart raced, cold sweat broke out, and I wondered, do I have any chance left? I called old contacts, voice trembling. I can do anything, even a lower position. But the answer was always the same. "Sorry, Skylar, but with the current situation..." They hesitated, and I understood they feared trouble. Savings drained quickly like water through fingers. Utility bills piled up on the table, red demand notices keeping me awake. I cut everything. Simple meals, only discounted items, even turning off lights early to save power. Eventually, I sold my personal laptop, the last tie to my career, just to cover another month's rent. At the peak of despair, I thought of my parents, Vincent and Sylvia Crawford. They lived in a lavish villa in upscale Westfield, where I grew up amid high society parties and harsh lessons on power. My father, Vincent, 64, was a shadowy financial magnate with widespread political influence. Cold, ruthless, he valued reputation above all. My mother, Sylvia, 61, was strong and cunning, always controlling everything around her. There had never been true warmth between us. They cared more about the family name than their children's feelings. But now, exhausted, I had no choice. Maybe they'll help for blood, I told myself, though deep down the hope was fragile as a thread. I drove the old pickup to Westfield. The road was long, cold wind whistling through the cracked window. my heart pounding. Alan sat beside me, asking, "Daddy, are we visiting Grandpa and Grandma?" "I miss them," I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, son. They'll be happy to see you." But memories flooded back. Father yelling over low grades, mother manipulating me into finance instead of tech. I took a deep breath as the car stopped at the large iron gate, the villa emerging with its lush garden and sparkling pool. I rang the bell, voice shaking. "It's me, Mom and Dad." The gate opened and I stepped in, clinging to a flicker of hope they would embrace me. The vast living room with luxurious furniture and faint perfume. My father sat brooding behind a financial newspaper, not looking up. He was the same. Silver hair, sharp features, exuding authority. "You're back," he said, voice low and cold as steel. "I know everything. And let me tell you, a Crawford is not allowed to fail." His words froze me. I tried to explain, voice choking. "Dad, I just need a small loan to care for Alan, your grandson." I looked at him, hoping for softness. But Vincent angrily threw the newspaper on the table, the sound echoing. "A loan? Do you think I'm a bank? You've soiled the family name. The Crawford name is now a public joke. What does the press say about you? Fraud, theft. You're this family's disgrace." His voice dripped contempt, eyes blazing. My heart pounded, suspense building for a sign of mercy, but none came. Sylvia descended the stairs, elegant in a flowing dress, face perfectly made up. She glanced at Alan, hiding behind me, then turned to me, voice icy. "This isn't a daycare, Skylar. Everyone faces their own consequences. You chose your path. Now bear it." I stood frozen. Vincent pulled a few dollar bills from his wallet, tossing them on the table like alms to a beggar. "This is enough to keep you from begging on the streets. Now leave." He turned and went upstairs, leaving me alone in the cold room. I wanted to refuse, to shout I didn't need pity, but thinking of Alan, hungry, needing a hot meal, I abandoned pride. Hands trembling, I bent to pick up the money, humiliation surging like a wave. I left the house where I grew up, glancing back one last time, the villa still grand but now a prison of memories. I took Alan's hand, walking in silence, carrying the feeling of being abandoned by my own blood. 2 weeks after being abandoned by my parents, our lives plunged into true hell. The few dollars my father had tossed at me like charity were long gone. I tried to stretch our stay in that moldy motel room, but the landlord wouldn't wait. "You have to leave. If you don't pay, I'll rent it to someone else," he said over the phone, his voice as cold as a death sentence. I stood in the middle of the room looking around, a few old clothes, a cracked suitcase, and Alan's cheap toys. That was all that remained of our lives. My hands trembled as I gathered those meager belongings, stuffing them into the old pickup truck, the only home we had left. Alan stood beside me, his big eyes staring. "Daddy, where are we going now?" I lifted him into the truck, forcing a smile. "We're going on an adventure, son. It'll be fun." But my heart pounded, gripped by invisible fear. How will we survive? No roof, no money, just each other and despair gnawing away day by day. By day, I drove around the city, hustling for work like a wanderer. The truck screeched with every acceleration, black exhaust belching behind, but I didn't stop. I pulled up at cafes, repair shops, even construction sites, clutching my crumpled resume. "I have management experience, but I'm willing to do anything," I pleaded with shop owners. They looked at me, then shook their heads. "Sorry, we're not hiring." Or worse, "You're Skylar Crawford, right? That lawsuit, we don't want trouble." Each rejection was a stab, tightening my chest. I drove on, sweating under the harsh sun, mind spinning with questions. Will anyone give me a chance? Or is it all just a delusion? Alan sat in the passenger seat, doodling on scrap paper to cheer me up. "Daddy, I drew our new house," he said, and I held back tears, pretending to smile. "It's beautiful, son." At night, we slept in the truck, covering ourselves with an old jacket to fend off the cold. I parked on quiet streets, avoiding police stares. Cold wind whistled through the cracked window, and Alan curled up in my lap, breathing steadily. But I couldn't sleep. I lay there staring at the dark ceiling, listening to rain pattering or trucks rumbling by. The pain from the bankruptcy, Iris leaving, my parents' rejection, all crashed over me like waves. I remembered nights in the warm villa, Alan asleep in his own room, Iris whispering about our future. Now, it was all distant memory. I have to be strong, I told myself, but my body was exhausted, my spirit drained. Each night was a battle with fear. What about tomorrow? What will Alan eat? I waited tensely for dawn, but dawn only brought more despair. The boy still tried to smile whenever I looked, like a little angel in hell. "Daddy, what are we eating today?" Alan asked, eyes sparkling. I fell silent, guilt tearing at me for failing to protect him. How could I, a father, let my son suffer like this? Each morning I bought a cheap loaf of bread from a roadside shop, splitting it with him. "Eat up, son, it's delicious," I said, but the bite stuck in my throat. Alan devoured it, grinning. Watching him, I vowed to rise, to be strong. But the harder I tried, the deeper reality pushed me down. Interviews failed one after another, pocket change down to a few coins. I sold my old watch, Iris's birthday gift, to buy gas and food. "It'll be okay," I consoled myself, but fear grew, a shadow enveloping everything. Then one stormy night, disaster struck unexpectedly, stopping my heart. We were parked on the roadside, rain pouring like a waterfall, thunder echoing. Alan suddenly groaned, body burning. "Daddy, I'm so hot," he whispered, eyes dazed. I touched his forehead, panic surging. "High fever." My heart raced, hands shaking as I held him. I drove through the rain to the nearest ER, water streaming down the windshield. Arriving, I carried Alan inside, clothes soaked and clinging. The hospital was brightly lit. The doctor examined quickly. "Viral fever, needs medicine and monitoring." Then the bill, numbers that stunned me. I rummaged through my pockets, enough only for the cheapest fever reducer. "This is all I have," I said, voice trembling, humiliation and helplessness flooding me. The doctor looked at me with pity. "Take him home to rest." For days we sheltered in the truck, Alan's fever unrelenting. I gave him medicine, wiped him with damp cloths, but he breathed heavily, face flushed. No proper food, just stale breadcrumbs and money gone. I sat beside him, watching him delirious, fear overwhelming that I might lose him forever. "Don't leave me, son," I whispered, tears streaming. Memories flooded. Alan's birth, Iris holding him happily, afternoons playing in the garden. Now it all seemed about to vanish. My heart pounded with every whimper, suspense waiting for a miracle. I tried calling old friends, but the phone flickered and died, battery dead. I sat in silence, darkness and despair closing in. Nearly broken, I slumped over the steering wheel, tears uncontainable. Rain fell, pattering on the roof like fate's drum. "Why is God testing me like this?" I sobbed silently, body shaking from cold and exhaustion. Suddenly, headlights flashed in the rearview mirror. A luxury car pulled up, engine purring amid the storm. My heart raced. Who? Trouble or salvation? A woman in a raincoat approached, tapping the window. I rolled it down, rain splashing my face, and looked, middle-aged, resolute yet warm eyes like a light in the dark. She glanced at me, then at Alan, delirious in the back. "I'm Clara," she said, voice calm over the rain. "Housekeeper for Mr. Jax Preston. He's dying and he wants to see you, Skylar Crawford." I was stunned, confused. Jax Preston? The name rang a bell, but why me? Why? I don't know him, I stammered, heart chaotic. She looked at Alan, voice urgent. "Your son is critical. Without treatment, he won't survive. Follow me. Mr. Jax has a private doctor." Her words struck like lightning. I looked at my son, pale, breathing faintly. No choice left, a spark of hope and despair. "Okay," I said, voice shaking. I let fate lead, starting the engine to follow her to where my life was about to turn. The car drove through the rain, my heart racing with 1,000 questions. Who is Jax? Why me? And Alan, my son. Will he be saved? Clara drove ahead, her luxury car gliding smoothly on the dark road while my truck rattled behind, headlights dimly piercing the thick rain. We left the city, turning onto suburban forest roads lined with dense trees, leaves rustling in the storm wind. My heart pounded every time the truck jolted over potholes, rainwater splashing the windshield. I glanced at Alan in the back seat. He remained unconscious, breathing rapidly, fear surging like waves. "Hang in there, son," I whispered, gripping the steering wheel tightly. How long had it been since I prayed? But that night I murmured silent pleas, hoping God wouldn't take my only child. Clara drove for about an hour, the road narrowing, the forest thickening as if swallowing us. I wondered, where is this? A villa in the woods? Why would someone like Jax Preston live in such isolation? Suspense rose. I imagined everything. A trap or a miracle. Rain poured relentlessly, thunder echoing like fate's warning. Finally, through the downpour, a large villa emerged, hidden deep in the forest, warm yellow lights illuminating the entrance. It was massive, like a fairy tale castle in harsh reality, with gray stone walls and curved tiled roofs. The iron gate opened as Clara pressed the remote, and we parked under the porch. I carried Alan out, rain soaking our clothes, his body burning in my arms. Clara led the way, voice calm. "Hurry, the doctor is waiting." We entered the grand foyer, warm with pine and fresh flowers, starkly contrasting the storm outside. A medical team in white coats waited, gently taking Alan from me and wheeling him into a side room with modern equipment. "We'll take care of the boy," the doctor said, professional yet reassuring. My heart clenched as Alan disappeared behind the door. "My son. Will he be okay?" I asked, voice trembling. Clara placed a hand on my shoulder. "They're the best. Now Mr. Jax is waiting." I nodded, mind reeling. "Alan will live, right? I can't lose him." Clara led me down a long hallway, red carpet underfoot, walls hung with abstract paintings and old photos. My heart raced faster as we reached a large room at the end, heavy wooden door creaking open. Inside, the air was heavy, antiseptic mixed with forest dampness. In the center was a large hospital bed where Jax Preston, 62, head of the famous Preston Motors auto empire, lay. He was frail, skin wrinkled, silver hair disheveled, surrounded by machines and tubes. Ventilator beeping, oxygen bubbling, heart monitor pulsing steadily. I froze at the door, not recognizing the man. I'd heard of Jax Preston in the press, the auto tycoon who built an empire from nothing. But why here? And how did he know me? Clara whispered, "He's been waiting for you." I approached, legs heavy as lead, heart pounding with suspense. The old man turned his head slowly, cloudy eyes still kind. He looked at me, a faint smile on his lips. His voice was hoarse, weak as a breeze. "Skylar. Crawford. Finally, you're here." I stood stunned, sitting on the bedside chair, hands trembling. Who are you? How do you know me?" He coughed. Clara gave him water, then he continued, "I've been searching for you for months, hoping to meet my savior before I close my eyes. You are my savior, Skylar." The word savior jolted me like lightning. Savior? When did I save him? My mind spun, memories jumbled but unclear. Jax breathed heavily, then pressed on, voice weak but firm. 12 years ago, in a car accident. My vehicle skidded off the road, plunged into the river. Heavy rain, rushing water. I thought I was done for. But you, a young man then, risked your life, jumped in to save me. Memories flooded back like an old film, vivid and real, making my heart race. I recalled that rainy night 12 years ago when I was a young software engineer driving home late. Torrential rain, slippery roads, and I saw a car plunge into the river from afar. My heart pounded then, adrenaline surging. Without thinking, I pulled over, shed my jacket, dove into the freezing water. The current dragged me, but I swam to the sinking car, smashed the window, pulled the unconscious man out. He was heavy, lungs flooded, but I fought to shore, performed CPR until he revived. Then I rushed him to the nearest hospital, stayed until doctors confirmed he was stable, and quietly left. I thought it was just the right thing, a humane act in the dead of night. Now sitting by his bed, I looked at Jax, and everything clicked. His face, though aged, still held familiar features from that night. "It was you?" I whispered, voice choking. "I didn't know. I just saved a stranger." He smiled faintly. "Yes, and you saved my life, Skylar." I sat there, gripping the chair, emotions surging like waves. Tears rolled down my cheeks, not from sadness, but overwhelming shock and feeling. For 12 years, I never imagined that act had changed someone's life so profoundly. Jax continued, voice hoarse but emotional. "After the incident, I woke in the hospital remembering little. But then I discovered my company, Preston Motors, was being sabotaged by rivals. They plotted to seize everything, from shares to technology. That accident wasn't random. It was part of a plan to kill me and cover tracks." His words stunned me. Suspense rising, I asked, Who did it?" He sighed, eyes distant. "Greedy industry players. They hired someone to tamper with the brakes, causing the skid. Without you, I'd have died in the river, and Preston Motors would be theirs. But thanks to you, I survived, uncovered the truth, and fought back. I investigated, sued, and won. All because of you, Skylar." I listened, heart racing with every detail. He spoke of the aftermath, hiring detectives to find me, knowing only I was a young man in an old pickup. It took years, but recently terminally ill with late-stage cancer. He intensified the search, finding me through recent lawsuit records. "I know you're struggling," he said, voice fading. "Bankruptcy, lost your wife, abandoned by family, but you deserve better. That's why, before I die, I want to meet you one last time. To thank you and repay you." His words cut into my heart. Repay. I wanted nothing, only Alan's health. But deep down, I sensed a life debt unfolding, making me tremble. A nurse entered, checking monitors. "You need rest." Jax nodded, eyes still on me. "Tomorrow. We'll talk more." I stood, legs weak, leaving with 1,000 questions. That night, in a large, warm guest room, I lay awake thinking of that rainy night 12 years ago. Suspense for morning. I knew my life was changing, but in what direction? Emotion and fear intertwined, like standing before a mysterious door. The next morning, dawn filtered through the forest canopy, casting faint rays into the villa. I woke early, heart full of anxiety, and rushed to Mr. Jax's room. Clara was already waiting at the door, her face sorrowful, eyes red-rimmed. He's gone, Skylar," she whispered, voice choking. I pushed the door open, and the sight stopped my heart. Mr. Jax lay still on the bed, face peaceful, nurses removing the tangled IV lines. Machines were off, the room silent enough to hear my own breathing. I stood silently, bowing at the bedside, feeling an endless void. The man I saved 12 years ago, who found me in my abyss, was now gone forever. "Thank you," I whispered, lightly touching his cold hand. The funeral was quiet and dignified, held a few days later in the villa's back garden. No noisy crowds, no jostling press. "Mr. Jax wanted it that way," Clara said. The coffin sat among ancient trees covered in white flowers, forest winds whispering farewell. I stood in a borrowed black suit, Alan clinging to my leg. Servants, butler, doctors, a few close staff, bowed final respects, voices low in an old hymn. As they bowed, a heavy weight pressed my chest like a stone. Days later, grief still lingering, I got a call from Mr. Jax's personal lawyer, Marcel Moore. His voice over the phone was serious, courteous. "Mr. Skylar, I need to meet you at the office. Regarding Mr. Jax's will." My heart pounded. Will? I never imagined. And why would his will involve me? I drove downtown. The law office was in a gleaming high-rise, air-cold with paperwork and legalese. Marcel Moore greeted me, middle-aged, glasses, impeccable suit. We sat in the conference room, thick stacks of documents before us. "Mr. Jax made his will clear," he said, sliding a paper toward me. His entire estate, Preston Motors conglomerate shares, the villa, supercar, and yacht collection, is transferred to you as repayment for saving his life years ago. His words exploded in my head like a bomb. I stared frozen at the paper, letters dancing, hundreds of millions, a massive auto empire. Gratitude mixed with confusion overwhelmed me. How? I, who lost everything, bankrupt, wandering, now chosen to inherit this vast legacy? The coincidence was too great, leaving me moved yet terrified. My hands shook holding the paper. But why me? I'm not his son. Marcel shook his head. I don't know, but the will is authenticated, fully valid and precise. Mr. Jacks believed you deserved it. My heart raced, suspense over the sudden burden. Was this a miracle or a weight? The lawyer handed me a sealed envelope, aged yellow paper, handwritten, for Schuyler Crawford only. Per Mr. Jacks, only you may open it, Marcel said gravely. I nodded, mind swirling. I left the office, driving back to the villa in light rain, 1,000 whys flooding. Why me? What secret lies behind? The envelope felt heavy, like carrying fate. Back at the villa, I sat long on the large living room sofa, staring at the envelope with a strange premonition, like it held a ticking bomb. Hands trembling, I tore the seal, breath quickening. Inside was a handwritten letter in Mr. Jacks's shaky script and a thick stack of yellowed documents. Heart pounding, I opened the letter. Dear Schuyler. In it, Jacks wrote heavy final words. He had a son my age named Caden Preston living abroad. Jacks confessed his lifelong empire from a small garage startup to Preston Motors could not go to Caden. According to him, Caden was a hedonist, ambitious, and ruthless, willing to betray all values for power. He recounted Caden's wastefulness, scandals, and attempts to seize the company during his illness. I cannot let my legacy fall to such hands, he wrote. I read, heart tightening. Was he so alone he chose a stranger? Then he expressed faith that only I, with humility, integrity, and resilience through adversity, deserved not just the wealth but his ideals, ethics, and spirit. You saved me without seeking gain, Schuyler. That's the quality I sought. Reading this, my eyes burned, deep emotion rising. Tears fell uncontrollably. Was I the failure seen as heir? Heart racing with gratitude and strange pride. But the final lines stopped my breath like a chokehold. Jacks revealed the saboteurs of his 12-year-old accident were none other than Crawford Financial Group, my parents' company. The file held all evidence he gathered over years. His words struck like thunder, my world spinning. My parents? Those who abandoned me? Enemies of Mr. Jacks? I dropped the letter, hands shaking as I opened the file. Papers scattered, $1 million transfer receipts, secret brake tampering contracts, photos of clandestine meetings between my father and accomplices. Crawford Financial Group's logo clear on every page, Vincent and Sylvia's signatures undeniable. I stared, heart iced over, falling into an abyss. Memories surged. Parents' secretive deals, late-night trips, lessons on power without scruples. Now it connected. The accident was their plot to seize Preston Motors. In the letter's end, he wrote he could have turned evidence over, sending Vincent and Sylvia to prison. But learning his savior was their son, he chose silence. I didn't want you to suffer more, Schuyler. I leave it to you, to decide if justice or forgiveness prevails. His words weighed like a burden on my chest. I collapsed to the floor, feeling the world crumble again. The man I saved was my own parents' victim? My parents, who birthed me cold but blood, now villains? In the days that followed, my son and I lived in Mr. Jacks's mansion, now officially mine under the will. The vast villa deep in the suburban forest with luxurious rooms, soft beds, and a lush garden like a resort. Alan excitedly ran around exploring the gleaming supercar garage or outdoor pool. Daddy, our house is like a castle, he shouted every morning, eyes sparkling. I smiled at him, but the smile was forced, for I suffered sleepless nights. I lay on the king-size bed, silk sheets enveloping me, but my mind spun like an unending storm. The evidence file was locked in the safe like a time bomb, and every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. Receipts, photos, my parents' signatures. I tossed and turned, cold sweat breaking out, heart pounding. What should I do? I asked myself hundreds of times. Clara, the loyal housekeeper, brought herbal tea each evening. Sir, rest. Mr. Jacks trusted you to decide right. But what was right? I paced the dark hallway, staring into the black forest, memories flooding. My parents abandoning me in their lavish villa, tossing money like alms. Now they were attempted murderers. Pain mixed with rage left me breathless. I knew handing over Mr. Jacks's evidence would bring justice. My parents arrested, the Crawford empire crumbling, Mr. Jacks at peace. But the cost was my own blood. They were my parents, cold and ruthless, yet they raised me, taught me the harsh world. Closing my eyes, I saw two opposing images. Justice. Mr. Jacks smiling serenely, Preston Motors revived ethically. Filial duty. Aging parents in prison, vacant eyes, and me, betrayer of kin. My heart twisted, torn in two. One morning, forest sunlight filtering through windows, I breakfasted with my son in the grand dining room. Polished walnut table set with toast, fresh fruit, fragrant coffee prepared by Clara. Alan grinned, smearing jam on his face. Daddy, let's swim today. I nodded, trying to forget worries, but noise erupted from the foyer. Main door slammed open, frantic footsteps. My heart pounded, suspense rising. Who? I stood shielding Alan as a man my age burst in, flanked by a black-suited lawyer and burly bodyguards, faces stone cold. Tension crackled like a bomb. Clara rushed in, panicked. Sir, they forced entry. I called security. But the man didn't stop, storming the dining room, face flushed with rage, eyes blazing. He halted at the table, slamming a crumpled will copy down with a resounding thud. I'm Caden Preston, he growled, breathing heavily. Jacks Preston's only son. And who are you? Some nobody daring to steal my father's fortune? My heart raced. I recognized him. Mr. Jacks's son, described in the will as ruthless and ambitious. He was about 35, slicked back hair, expensive shirt unbuttoned, reeking of alcohol. I stood, eyes cold, fists clenched under the table. Mr. Preston's will is clear, I said calmly, though my heart drummed. He insulted not just me, but the deceased's memory, Mr. Jacks, who trusted me over his own flesh. Alan hid behind me, scared. Daddy, is the man angry? I stroked his hair, whispering, It's okay, stay put. Caden stepped closer, jabbing a finger at my chest, alcohol breath stinging. You manipulated my dying father into signing. A failure like you, bankrupt, homeless, how dare you claim the Preston legacy? You're just a lucky parasite, no Preston blood, no right to inherit. His words cut like knives, boiling my blood. I recalled Mr. Jacks's letter. Caden, the hedonist ready to betray. Now he stood before me, purple-faced, shouting. I suppressed rage, meeting his gaze firmly, unbowed. The will reflects Mr. Jacks's wishes. I forced nothing. My silence enraged him further. He slammed the table, glasses clinking, jam splattering. Who do you think you are? I'll sue you. Return Preston Motors or you'll regret it. He swung his arm, bodyguards advancing, air suffocating. My heart raced, suspense for a punch or threat. I refused, voice resolute. I won't yield to slander. This is my home by law. Leave or I call police. Caden sneered, eyes sharp. You'll regret this. He turned, signaling lawyer and guards, storming out with pounding steps. The confrontation ended in choking tension, leaving the dining room deathly silent. Clara rushed in, worried. Sir, are you okay? I nodded, hands still shaking. Days later, Caden sued and a media storm hit. Social media and press overflowed with lies targeting me. Skylar Crawford, con man seizing Billionaire's estate. Sensational articles, stolen photos, vicious comments. He exploited a dying old man. I read each line on my phone, heart constricting, but stayed silent, letting truth speak. For silence was sometimes the only way to protect honor. Then the inheritance dispute trial unfolded in city court, courtroom packed with reporters. Caden sat opposite, scowling, his lawyer attacking. Will coerced, but my lawyer, Marcel, presented the original Will and Clara's testimony. Mr. Jacks was lucid, wishes clear. Clara affirmed, he chose Skylar out of trust. I sat, heart chaotic, suspense for the verdict. Caden yelled, he's a fraud. But after reviewing all documents, the judge banged the gavel. Will valid. Skylar Crawford prevails. All assets, Preston Motors, and control were mine. Caden lost, penniless, leaving with a venomous glare and whispered threat. You'll pay. My heart raced, knowing this wasn't the end. The price of conscience now included Caden's revenge. I returned home, hugging Alan, but my heart was heavy. Was this victory worth it? A week after the trial, as I tried to settle into my new life, everything seemed to fall into place. Preston Motors, the auto empire Mr. Jacks left me, demanded immediate immersion in work. I spent days in the downtown headquarters meeting executives, reviewing financial reports, and planning restructuring to emphasize business ethics as Mr. Jacks desired. Luxury cars rolled in the factory, machines roared, and employees eyed me with curiosity and respect. The new boss, they called me, and I forced smiles, striving to prove worthy. Alan stayed home with Clara, quickly adapting to the vast villa running in the garden, asking about model cars in the garage. Daddy, bring a big car home today, he cheered each morning as I kissed him goodbye. I hugged him, his familiar hair scent warming my heart, but deep down, Caden's shadow loomed. He lost the suit, penniless, and his threat, you'll pay, echoed like a curse. One late evening, after a long shareholder meeting, I drove back to the villa through suburban forest darkness. Headlights lit the winding road, cold wind whistling through the window, fatigue overwhelming. The meeting succeeded, new contracts signed, stocks rising. But my mind churned over the evidence file on my parents. Should I burn it? I wondered, gripping the wheel. But returning to the villa and entering my study, the sight froze my blood. The door was forced open, hinges bent from a kick. Papers scattered the floor, books tumbled, drawers pried, furniture chaotic like after a storm. I rushed in, hands shaking, checking the locked safe in the corner, where I hid the envelope with Crawford Financial Group's crimes. Lock broken, safe open, envelope gone. My heart stopped, cold sweat breaking out, mind spinning. Impossible. Who? How did they know? I collapsed to the floor, head in hands, memories flooding. Receipts, photos, proof my parents staged Mr. Jacks's accident. Now in unknown hands, fear surged like waves. Alan, I shouted, running to find him. Clara appeared in the hallway, face pale. I bombarded her. Who entered my room? What happened? Trembling, she recounted, It was Caden, sir. He arrived hours ago with bodyguards, making a scene. I said you were in an important meeting, but he ignored me. He stormed upstairs into your room, smashing everything. I heard glass breaking, papers flying. I wanted to call you, but feared interrupting. I waited for your return. Her words struck like lightning, leaving me stunned. Caden. He broke in, took the file. Heart racing, suspense over his plans. Why not call police? I asked sharply. Clara bowed. He threatened harm to Alan if I did. I was scared. I hugged her. It's okay, you did right. But rage and fear boiled. Caden started his revenge, the file now his weapon. A week later, as things seemed calm, disaster hit via TV. I sat in the villa living room after dinner, Alan asleep on the sofa. I turned on the evening news, sipping wine. Then the screen showed a sight that stunned me. My parents, Vincent and Sylvia Crawford, escorted by police from their Westfield mansion. Father, silver hair, disheveled, gaunt face, hands cuffed. Mother, wrinkled dress, weary and vacant, avoiding cameras. Reporters shouted, "Power couple arrested." I couldn't breathe, wine glass shattering on the floor, glass echoing. Investigators announced, Vincent and Sylvia Crawford detained for financial crimes, bribery, money laundering, and attempted murder, specifically Jax Preston's 12-year-old accident. Reporter detailed, Evidence includes transfer receipts, secret contracts, clandestine meeting photos. It was Mr. Jax's file, heart constricting, suspense rising with the next shock. The accuser was Caden Preston, victim's son, who submitted the documents. Caden Preston claims justice for his father, the reporter said, showing him smiling for cameras. Hearing this, I was shocked yet unsurprised. Deep down, I knew Caden would retaliate by turning in Jax's evidence. He didn't just take the file to destroy my parents, but to strike my conscience as Preston heir. Media frenzy followed, a whirlwind sweeping everything. Sensational headlines: Crawford empire crumbles, finance tycoon arrested for murder plot. Parents' photos viral, vicious comments: "They deserve it." Shareholders withdrew en masse. Crawford Financial Group stocks plummeted. Partners canceled contracts. I watched via computer, heart hollow as a void, though my parents treated me harshly in hardship, abandoning, scorning, they birthed and raised me. Now their empire crumbled, and I, their son, watched helplessly. Caden, goal achieved, quietly left the U.S. Rumors online. Flying to Europe with remaining funds, revenge clear to indirectly topple me. Press dug. Caden Preston accuses father's foes to spite heir. I stood amid ashes of two dynasties, Preston and Crawford, realizing no true winner. Mr. Jax vindicated, but too late. My parents ruined. Caden broke but satisfied. Me wealthy but heartbroken. In the following weeks, the world around me spiraled into chaos, where truth emerged but brought no peace. The trial of Vincent and Sylvia Crawford drew massive media attention, like a tragic play broadcast live. The courtroom overflowed with reporters, cameras flashing nonstop, headlines screaming, "Finance tycoon Vincent Crawford faces death by reputation." Both faced numerous charges: large-scale financial fraud, bribing officials to manipulate markets, money laundering through shell companies, and attempted murder, specifically targeting businessman Jax Preston in the 12-year-old accident. I sat in the villa, watching on TV, heart pounding every time my parents appeared. My father, Vincent, once a powerful magnate with a confident smile, now stood behind the defendant's bar, shoulders slumped, eyes averted. My mother, Sylvia, tried maintaining her aristocratic poise, but her hands trembled holding the microphone. The prosecutor presented evidence, Caden's submitted file, with a steely voice. After 3 tense weeks, sentencing came on a drizzly morning. The courtroom fell silent. The judge banged the gavel, voice grave. Vincent Crawford is sentenced to 25 years imprisonment, no parole due to the severity of the crimes. My father bowed his head, shoulders shaking, silent. Then my mother. Sylvia Crawford receives 18 years for complicity and concealing criminal acts. She sobbed softly, hand over mouth, eyes vacant. Reporters snapped photos, crowds outside cheered. Justice prevails. I followed the entire trial in silence from the villa before the TV, not gloating, not in intense pain, just a profound exhaustion, as if my soul was drained after all the turmoil. A month later, when forest rain stopped and autumn gold enveloped the town, I decided to visit the northern prison, where my parents were held, to end it all. The long road wound through red-leaved forests, cold wind whistling through the car window, my heart pounding with suspense. What will I say? I wondered, gripping the wheel. Alan stayed with Clara, waving. Daddy, visiting Grandpa and Grandma? Have fun. I forced a smile, but inside chaos, this was the final meeting to close the past. The prison loomed, high concrete walls, barbed wire, heavy air like a graveyard. I passed security, waited in the visiting room, heart racing each second. Then they appeared behind thick glass, Vincent and Sylvia Crawford, no longer tycoon and lady. Across the glass, my father sat hunched, silver hair disheveled, gaunt face etched with deep wrinkles. He wore gray prisoner uniform, shoulders stooped, aged decades and months. My mother beside him, skeletal, hands trembling on the table, trying composure but eyes lifeless, empty voids. I stared long through the cold glass, emotions flooding. Pity for their helplessness, anger for their crimes and abandonment, nameless sorrow for a family that once existed. heart constricting, tears welling. "Dad, Mom," I said through the microphone, voice trembling. They looked up, father weary-eyed, mother weakly smiling. I began, voice choking. "I came to end this. The days you abandoned Alan and me when I lost everything, you tossed money like charity, turned cold backs. I remember it all. Your mistakes shattered our family, and now the price is this, in prison." My words cut like knives, but needed saying. My father lifted his head, lips moving as if to speak, but only a heavy sigh, eyes down. My mother shook her head, tears streaming, lacking courage to face the past. She whispered, "Skylar," then fell silent. Both ultimately mute, heavy silence louder than excuses, an invisible wall between us. I sat staring through glass, heart aching. Suspense for an apology, explanation, but none. Only sighs and tears. I stood, final glance through thick glass. Father bowed, mother averted, then turned away. Steps slow but resolute, leaving a dead chapter. Outside prison, cold wind hit my face, and I cried, for them, for Mr. Jacks, for myself. 2 years passed since the verdict closed the chapter. Time flowing like a gentle river, washing away painful fragments, leaving a renewed, stronger Skylar Crawford. I had restored Preston Motors to its pinnacle, not just an ordinary car company, but a symbol of innovation. My name was cited as a model of resilience and rebirth, from a bankrupt wanderer sleeping in his truck to the master of a billion-dollar empire. I stood on stages at major conferences, microphone in hand, sharing the journey. Failure is not the end, but a lesson to rise. Applause thundered, but deep down I knew true value lay in sleepless nights and agonizing decisions. My heart still raced, recalling Mr. Jacks, the evidence file, and Caden, the vanished man whose vengeful shadow lingered. Suspense over potential surprises kept me vigilant, but life was now steadier, like a sturdy ship on the open sea. Under my leadership, the company became a new icon in smart vehicle technology and digital security. We expanded factories, partnered with tech startups, and launched electric cars with biometric security, fingerprint, facial recognition, even voice analysis to prevent theft. Customers rushed orders from corporations to individuals, and press wrote, "Skylar Crawford is revolutionizing the auto industry, turning cars into safe companions." I traveled everywhere, from the US to Europe, signing deals, attending international auto shows. Beyond work, I devoted most time to Alan, the center of my world. We lived simply in the Preston Villa, vast but using only a few rooms to keep it cozy like a small home. No lavish parties, no flashy cars parading. Just simple meals Clara cooked, with homegrown vegetables and weekend barbecues. Our life stabilized and improved, like a calm river after a storm, with weekend forest picnics, grilling, and storytelling. Alan grew healthy with school friends, and I proudly told him, "You're doing great, son." I thought life was peaceful, but one afternoon, leaving a meeting to head home, everything changed. My heart raced, seeing a familiar car parked at the villa gate, a gleaming silver sedan, license plate etched in memory. "Impossible," I whispered, cold sweat breaking out. Iris's car, my ex-wife who left when I lost everything. Hands trembling as I parked, suspense rising. What does she want, after years of silence? The woman stepping out was Iris, dressed elegantly in a fitted black dress, face meticulously made up, hair perfectly curled. But her eyes showed fatigue, dark circles under powder, as if life hadn't met expectations. She looked at me, forced smile. "Skylar, long time no see." Heart-pounding memories flooded. The day she placed divorce papers on the table, wheeled her suitcase out, leaving Alan and me in the sealed villa. Now she stood at the Preston Villa gate, afternoon sun on her once beautiful face. "Iris, what are you doing here?" I asked, voice calm but inside turmoil. She approached, voice trembling. "You. I was wrong. Life without you is empty. I regret leaving when you were struggling. I want to come back, start over. For Alan, for us." Her words cut like knives, but I listened silently, eyes no longer hurt as before. just calm distance. I knew her reason. Not love, but my success, press praise, Preston Motors empire, wealthy life. She was always fame-hungry, pragmatic, and now, at my peak, she returned. Heart aching, but no longer weak. I refused coldly, voice even. Iris, some doors once closed never reopen. You chose your path, and I learned to live without you. She froze, eyes tearing, clutching her bag. Skylar, please. Reconsider. But I turned, walking inside, gate closing behind her, footsteps fading. In the living room, Alan ran to hug me, big eyes round. Daddy, who was that? I saw a pretty lady. I smiled, ruffling his hair, voice gentle. Just a stranger, son. Now dinner for us? Alan grinned, running for a book, and I sat on the sofa, strangely at peace. I understood, after all, this was the life worth keeping, one built by my own hands and honesty. No Iris, no painful past, just Alan and the future ahead. Suspense for what life might bring, but now I was ready, strong and free. In the spring of the 3rd year since all the trials ended, my life turned a new page, calmer yet still meaningful. The suburban forest rains gave way to gentle warmth, flowers blooming in the villa garden, the breeze carrying fresh earth scent like a reminder of rebirth. I devoted much time to charity and teaching at business ethics seminars, things I never imagined doing. Preston Motors remained the pillar, but I no longer buried myself in work to escape. Instead, I chose to repay life by helping others. Each week I flew to universities or small conferences, standing before young students or emerging entrepreneurs, sharing my journey. Ethics is not a burden, I often said, voice warm and steady, but the foundation for a lasting empire. They listened, applauded, eyes sparkling with hope, like mine once, as a young engineer full of dreams. But after each talk, I declined interviews, quietly returning to the villa, avoiding media flashes. Why don't you appear in the news more? Alan once asked, holding a newspaper article about me. I smiled, ruffling his hair. Because Daddy prefers quiet, son. Fame isn't everything. My heart raced, recalling the past. Lawsuits, bankruptcy, parents in prison. But now that suspense yielded to peace, as if life whispered, you did right. I allocated 10% of Preston Motors' quarterly profits to establish the Jax Preston Foundation, continuing the compassion Mr. Jax passed to me. The idea came one sleepless night, sitting at his old desk, flipping through photos of his life. From a tiny garage to a vast empire. You saved me without seeking gain, I whispered, tears falling. The foundation formed quickly, aiming to support orphaned children and engineering students, those like my younger self, lacking opportunity but full of potential. We built learning centers on the city outskirts, provided scholarships for hundreds in tech fields, and held summer camps for orphans, teaching programming, auto engineering, and most importantly, life ethics. Visiting centers, I saw children beaming, holding new laptops, asking, Uncle Skylar, how do you make a flying car? I smiled, sitting to tell of Mr. Jax. Start with a dream and stay honest. Alan often joined, playing with kids, sharing toys, helping others, Daddy. My heart warmed seeing him learn compassion, what Mr. Jax taught me through that life-saving act. But signing foundation checks, I thought of Caden, who used the file for revenge, and wondered, if he knew, would he regret? Suspense over the foundation's impact. I tracked reports. A scholarship student, now an engineer at Preston Motors, an orphan finding adoptive family. That was the greatest reward, making me smile in quiet nights, knowing kindness rippled like waves on a lake. Despite invitations to prestigious events, from TED Talks to global economic forums, I stayed humble, avoiding media as a self-reminder against vanity. I declined most, accepting only small sessions for direct audience talks. I'm no hero, I told organizers over the phone, voice soft, just a lucky survivor. Press still pursued, paparazzi lurking outside the villa, but I hired discreet security, living quietly. Alan asked, Daddy, why do people take your picture? I laughed. Work stuff, but I prefer home with you. We spent weekends reading, playing chess or forest walks, simple moments bringing heart peace. But in quiet nights, Alan asleep, I still thought of my parents in prison. No longer resentful, anger faded with time. I silently wished them peace and awakening before it was too late. I sent prison letters, simple lines, "I hope you're well. Reflect on the past." No reply, but I knew they received them. The final visit haunted. Father sighing, mother silent. Now I prayed quietly. Wake up before time runs out. Heart beating softly, thinking of them. Not pain, just gentle sadness like falling autumn leaves. Alan, now 10, more mature, sometimes asked about grandparents curiously. Tall, messy hair after soccer at dinner. "Daddy, what about Grandma and Grandpa? Why in prison?" I didn't hide, wanting to teach truth. "They made mistakes, son. Did wrong for power, now paying the price. But we learned from their errors to be better." Alan nodded, eyes serious. "I won't be like that, Daddy. I'll be honest like you taught." His words cut sweetly, making me hug him tight, tears welling. We talked more about life. Mr. Jax's rescue, Iris leaving, Caden's revenge. "Life isn't fair, but you choose how to live," I said, voice warm. Alan listened, then drew. "Our family. Daddy, me, and Mr. Jax in the clouds." I hung it in the room, smiling. Beautiful. Suspense over his growth, I knew Alan would be a good man. Not like Caden, not like my father. Those talks were life lessons, healing old wounds. I realized over 2 years life doesn't divide winners and losers, but those who learn from pain and those who deny it. I was once a loser, bankrupt, wandering, abandoned, but pain taught resilience. My parents denied faults, now imprisoned. Caden denied compassion, exiled. I learned from them, growing stronger. "Life is a lesson," I whispered each morning, gazing at blooming garden flowers. I rewrote my old journal, worn leather book of dark days, first page in shaky script. Justice isn't for revenge, but to light the path forward. Each night, a few lines. About the foundation, Alan, lessons from Mr. Jax. Today, a scholarship student cried thanks. That's true justice. The journal became a companion for reflection, and one day I'd leave it for Alan. Those who once saw me as failure, old friends, former partners, now viewed me as living proof of kindness and faith's power. They called, "Skylar, you did it." I invited them to the villa, shared coffee, but stayed humble. Just luck. Press wrote, "Skylar Crawford, from abyss to peak through compassion." But I only smiled. True victory was looking back without hating anyone. No hate for Iris leaving, Caden's revenge, parents' crimes. Just acceptance, moving forward, heart lighter, burdens lifted. One windless afternoon, golden sunlight enveloping the back garden, Alan and I planted a tree, a small oak he chose from the nursery. Alan shoveled dirt diligently. "Daddy, will this grow like Mr. Jax?" I smiled, kneeling beside. "Yes, if we care for it." Everyone needs a place to start over, sometimes in their own heart. We filled soil, watered, and Alan cheered, "My tree!" I hugged him, gazing at the lush garden where Mr. Jax once walked, feeling peace. Sunset fell, sky reddening, breeze carrying flower scent. I looked up, smiling serenely. My life was no longer tragedy, but a journey of a man rediscovering true justice, faith, and kindness. And kindness. And kindness. And kindness. And kindness. And kindness. And kindness, 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 and kindness,